President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government to spend 1.37 billion naira on ministers designate for accommodation amid economic crush in Nigeria. This comes despite the economic crunch facing Nigerians' economy, resulting in the removal of fuel subsidy by the government to save more funds for development. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government is set to spend about 1.37 billion naira in 4 years in housing allowances for the newly appointed ministers. According to a report, it will cost the country about 343.25 million naira annually to provide accommodation for the ministers in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. It was also reported that the Senate, which is the Nigerian's upper legislative chamber, has confirmed 45 of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's 48 nominees for ministerial positions after it completed its screening. During the screening, we should recall that 3 ministerial nominees were dropped. They were former Governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, former Executive Director, Business Development, Nigerian Export-Import Bank, Mrs. Stella Okotete from Delta State, and a nominee from Taraba State, Danladi Abubakar. The President unveiled the portfolios of his ministers, and they are expected to be inaugurated on Monday. However, the rejected ministerial nominees are expected to be replaced. So, with the annual allocation of 343.25 million naira in 4 years, the federal government will spend about 1.37 billion naira on the 45 ministers with regards to their accommodation. According to reports, the allowances are based on data collated from a document obtained from the website of the Revenue, Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, ROMAFC. It also covers allowances for accommodation 200% of basic salary, domestic staff 75% of basic salaries, utilities 30% of basic salaries, and furniture 300% of basic salary. Unlike other allowances paid monthly, furniture allowance is usually paid once in 4 months. Now, according to the list of the minister's portfolio, 13 of the nominees were appointed ministers of state, while some new ministers and ministries were also created. The ministers and their portfolios are as follows. We have the Minister of Communication, Innovation and Digital Economy, Busum Tijani. We also have the Minister of State, Environment and Ecological Management, Ishaq Salako. We also have the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Bumi Tuji Ojo. We have the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu. We have the Minister of State, Health and Social Welfare, Tunji Alusa. We have the Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dele Aleke. We have the Minister of Tourism, Lola Ade John. We have the Minister of Transportation, Adeboyega Ayetola. Others are the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Doris Anite, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, Uche Nnaji, the Minister of State, Labour and Employment, Nkiruka Aye Diocha. We have the Minister of Women Affairs, Uju Kennedy, the Minister of Works, David Umahi, the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, the Minister of Youth, Abubakar Momo, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Betta Edu, the Minister of State, Gas Resources, Beripe Ekbo, the Minister of State, Petroleum Resources, Heineken Loribiri, the Minister of Sports Development, John Eno, and the Minister of Federal Capital Territory, which is the former Governor of Rivers State, Ezenwo Nyesom Wike. Also on the list are the Minister of Arts, Culture and Creative Economy, Hannatu Musawa, the Minister of Defense, Mohammed Badaru, the Minister of State Defense, Bello Matawale, Minister of State Education, Tanko Sanunu, the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Ahmed Dangiwa. Tinubu also set the record for the highest number of ministerial nominees in Nigeria's Fourth Republic from 1999 till date, with 48, which experts said would likely worsen the high governance cost. The president's nominees topped the 42 appointed by his predecessor, Muhammadu Buhari, in 2019 by 5 more persons. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu first nominated 28 persons to be cleared by the Senate as ministers. We should recall that the president also sent another list of 19 nominees, making a total of 47 potential cabinet members. However, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu withdrew the nomination of Mariam Shetty as a ministerial nominee from Kano State and replaced her with Dr. Maria Momodu Bonkure. Also from Kano State, he also added the name of Festus Keyamo as a senior advocate of Nigeria, from Delta State as a nominee for screening. In his first term, we should recall that the former president of Nigeria, Buhari, named 36 ministers, while the number increased to 42 during his second term. Former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan also in 2011 named 33 nominees to be ministers in his cabinet, including 9 from the Umaru Yar'Adua's administration. Also in 2007, Yar'Adua named a 39-member cabinet made up of 32 men and 7 women. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo also initially named 42 ministers in 1999, but reviewed his cabinet to reduce the number of ministries and ministers to 27 and 40 respectively before he left office in 2007. Now, despite calls to reduce the cost of governance, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has now surpassed Obasanjo, Yar'Adua, Jonathan and Buhari to nominate 48 would-be ministers, setting a new record since the country returned to democracy 24 years ago. It was also learned that each minister is entitled to an accommodation allowance of 4.5 million naira, domestic staff allowance of 1.52 million naira, and utilities allowances of 0.61, alongside furniture allowance of 6.8 million naira, which is paid once in 4 years. Each minister of state is entitled to an accommodation allowance of 3.92 million naira, domestic staff allowance of 1.47 million naira, and utility allowance of 59, along furniture allowance of 5.87 million naira. An analysis of these figures has shown that each minister is expected to get annually a total of 7.7 million naira, while each minister of state is expected to get a total of 7.45 million naira annually. Now, in 4 years, would now discover that each minister gets 30.8 million naira, while each minister of state gets 29.8 million naira. Wow. Now, in total, the 32 ministers will cost the country about 985.6 million naira, while the 13 ministers of state will go up about 387.4 million naira in 4 years. This further means that the 45 ministers would cost the country a total of 1.37 billion naira in 4 years. The figure is expected to increase after the approval of the 3 pending ministerial nominees amid calls for a reduction in the cost of governance in Nigeria.